and welcome back to my channel. This is Maria once again, and today we are going to go through your basic crochet stitches. We are going to touch on the single crochet, the double crochet, and the triple, or otherwise known as treble crochet. And to get started, we are going to be utilizing some of the same tools I've gone over in a previous video, which is you will need a pair of scissors, you will need a tapestry needle or darling needle, you will need your crochet hook, you will need some yarn, and I highly recommend getting some stitch markers. This is again optional, but they do help quite a bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with the type of yarn I'm using so that you guys can see exactly what we're using here. So the first one that we have, I am actually using Hometown USA by Lion Brand Yarns. This one here is Las Vegas Gold, and this is a super bulky 6, which calls for a 9mm crochet hook or a size N13. I have here a 6, which allows me to have a much tighter gauge, but we will be using the 9 as well. So that is here. So here's the 9mm. As you can see, because I use clover hooks, the 9mm is made of this surgical grade plastic so that it is lighter. This steel is quite heavy, but the 6mm is the last of the clover hooks that actually uses the surgical steel, and then it switches off into the surgical plastic, which is very, very durable. It's quite solid. So, you know, depending on the size hook that you use, will determine whether your stitches are tight or if they're a little looser. So if we're going to go with what is being shown here, we would want to use this 9mm. And I will show you the differences. So for the Las Vegas Gold, I will be using the 9mm hook. And then here we have the Honolulu Pink, also in Hometown USA. This is the Honolulu Pink. Again, same exact super bulky 9mm hook that you need to be able to do this. I will also be using I think I will be using the 6mm for this one. I will be using the 6mm crochet hook for the Honolulu Pink. And then we are also using the Baton Rouge Fuchsia, which on screen it may come out a little bit more red because of the lighting and the cameras, but it is very, very dark fuchsia color in real life. So, and for this, I am actually going to use, the 15 might be too big. Let me see here. I'll use a 10mm crochet hook for the fuchsia so that I can show you what gauge does and the different size hooks and how that comes out and comes through on your projects as we learn these basic stitches. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to put these inside over here. And of course, the first thing we need to do is create a slip knot. Okay, and I'm going to use my crisscross method, and there is a link in the description down below to learn how to do a slip knot in different ways. This is my preferred way, but there are other ways of doing a slip knot for sure, but this is my preferred one, and you can watch that video to learn how to do that if you haven't yet. So we're going to go ahead and, again, how to hold your hook, how to hold your yarn, all very personal ways of holding it, different ways of holding it. Whatever feels the most comfortable to you is the better way of doing it. So however that happens for you, is the better way. Now we're going to go ahead and make a foundation chain, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And remember that with a foundation chain, you want to just kind of make sure that all your stitches here look pretty symmetrical and pretty even. So this is with the suggested hook size for this yarn, which is the 9mm. So let's look at how this works up with the 6mm. Again, I'm going to use that crisscross method to make my slip knot, and then we are going to go ahead and create 10 stitches in this chain with the 6mm. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you move up 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And as you can see, look how much smaller that is, right? So that is why using varying hooks, even aside from what is recommended by the yarn, can be beneficial if you are looking to create garments or sizing of any sort that you may need to scale down or scale up. That changing the hook size helps a lot in that. Okay, so once again, we're now going to use a much larger hook, which is the 10mm. We're going to crisscross again. Create that slip knot. I like to come in this other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, move up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And as you can see, look at that difference. So we're going to move the fuchsia up here. Right? So look how much, this is only slightly, this is 1mm bigger, and it's still a nice size up from there. And this is the 6mm, which is, it's 4mm from the 10, but you can see how much difference that is. Okay, so once you have your foundation chain, what you want to do is we're going to start with single crochet. Now single crochet, I'm going to go ahead and use this one here for the single crochet. And what we're going to do is, one thing that we need to ensure is that whatever loop is on your hook never counts as a stitch or a reference point of any kind. So when a pattern calls for single crochet, it usually asks you to make one more past your foundation chain. Okay, so it will be a total of 11 chains here. Okay, so 11 stitches, and then it's going to say insert, right? Insert your hook straight into one stitch past your hook. So that means this is on my hook, I'm counting back. This is one stitch, 2, 3, 4, right? So if it says single crochet, we're going with one stitch past the hook. And what you want to do is you want to go ahead and insert that hook right into that stitch, that first stitch from the hook. We are going to yarn over the hook, grab that hook, you're going to twist the hook down so that you're grabbing that yarn in the hook, and you're going to pull it through that first stitch. And what's going to happen now is you're going to have 2 loops, okay, on your hook. And that is the reason why, for example, in the UK or in other countries, sometimes this is referred to as a double crochet because there's 2 loops on the hook. So it's varying different ways across the regions of how they call things. So if you're looking on YouTube or if you're looking through a pattern that was created in another country, specifically in the UK, they may refer to this as a double crochet, where we would refer it to a single crochet. So then once we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to go yarn over the hook again. So that's why it's called yarn over. Yarn over the hook again, grab that yarn, and we're going to pull it through both of those 2 loops, and you have yourself the very first single crochet. Now, to continue onward, right, you're going to go ahead and place your hook 1 stitch from the loop that's on your hook. You're going to grab that yarn over and grab it, pull it through. You have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over the hook, twist your hook so that it hooks on, and pull through both those loops. And this is how you would continue all the way back down. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So now we have done 1 row of single crochets, and now you have the beginning of your project. Now, however many chains you want to do, so if you wanted to do a scarf, right, you have to think about how wide you want that scarf to be, and you chain to the width that you would like, and then you plus 1 more stitch to do single crochets, because you're going to need that extra stitch as what is called the turning chain. So your turning chain is what happens as you turn to go back and forth through your project. So now we've gotten to the end here, and as you see, I've done my last single crochet here. Now we need to work back towards this side. So if you think of your crochet projects, they kind of go in the zigzag pattern. So you're going back and forth as you build your rows up. So here, once we get to this end right here, where we have our slip knot originally, we want to always chain 1. If we're going to continue with single crochet, it's a chain of 1. Okay, and then we're going to turn our work around so that we are looking at the opposite side of your work. Okay, now if you turn your work this way, you will see that it's basically almost the identical view that you see here, okay, to what your foundation chain looked like. It's a series of V's. So each one of these is a stitch, and there should be 10, even though we started with 11, because again, this is a turning chain and it doesn't count quite as a stitch, but you should have 10. So if we counted the V's here, now remember we did have a chain of 1 here, so we're going to count from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you want to make sure that your counts are right as you're working your project. So the best way I can do that, okay, when I am building projects is by using a stitch marker. So what I do is every even number of stitches. So like if I have 10, I'm counting every 5, right? So that I go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then you can slide your stitch marker into the stitch that you want to mark, and that way you remember that every time you go back to that stitch, it's that exact number of stitches. So as you're turning your work around and you have now done that chain 1 and turn, how we work our project from here on out is in between those V's. So you would then, okay, you would stick your hook into that first V so that you're picking up both of those threads there, right? So you're going underneath the V, and you would pick up your yarn and pull it through. and then you would yarn over again. You have 2 loops on your hook and you pull through. And then you go on to the next one. So you have a loop on your hook, 1 stitch from your hook. You're going to go under both of those threads, so under the V entirely. You're going to yarn over and pull, and you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over again and pull through both loops. Okay? And then you're just going to go ahead and continue. Now let me show you when I get to the stitch what it is that I like to do. So then I'm going to go ahead and go into that V that I have here, and I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to complete that stitch. And then what I'm going to do is, I now know that I have 5 V's up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So then I'm just going to take that stitch marker and move it up. And that way you don't lose count, especially when you're doing large projects. Like if you're doing a blanket and it calls for, 130 chains, you want to keep, maybe every 20 chains, every 30 chains or something like that. You want to put in a stitch marker so you don't have to count, all those stitches every time. So we're going to go ahead and go through all the way with single crochet. And then you're coming to the very edge. Now, the very, very edge can be a little difficult to see because it's a turning chain. So it kind of does this little curvature thing. So you have to be mindful of it and not miss it. And that's why counting your stitches is actually a good thing, because you want to make sure you have, when you get to the end, you have 10. So I know that this was my 5th stitch, right? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have 10 stitches. I'm in good shape. Now, I've gotten to the end. I'm going to chain 1 again, okay? And then I'm going to turn. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to go straight into that first V and pull through. And now I'm getting to my stitch marker here. So I'm going to work my stitch, and then I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch marker up, because I know that's my 5th stitch, right? Before I continue forward. And now I'm coming to the end here. There's my turning chain. I want to make sure I am grabbing that stitch, that very last stitch. And then I'm counting again. Now I know this is my 5th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now there's 4. I'm missing one, but it doesn't look like it, does it? So it kind of looks like it, but it doesn't. It's very easy to miss. But here's your turning chain right here. So you have to make sure that you grab that. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get through that, especially if you're using a smaller hook. Okay, but you want to make sure, always make sure you have those necessary stitch counts. So we have 5 on this side and 5 on this side. That's 10. That's going to work up very even on each side. Okay, now we're going to chain 1 again, and we can continue onward in this fashion. Now, if you can see, because we are doing, move these out of the way a little bit. Because we are doing single crochet, and because we're going this way, turning, going this way, turning, and going this way, you will see a pattern that looks fairly the same on both sides once you have several rows, but each row looks different. The first and third rows look similar. The second and fourth rows will look similar, but that's kind of how the pattern will work up, okay? So that is single crochet. And if you need to review this, please go back in this video and start all over again and review it again with me, okay? So we're going to move on from single crochet. We're going to go ahead and do now what we call double crochet, but in the UK and in other countries it is called the treble crochet. Definitely here in the US this is called a double crochet. So we have our foundation chain the same exact way, except now we have 10, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And once we want, if we want to do a pattern of 10 chain or 20 chain or 30 chain or 600 chain, whatever that might be, right? We now, because we're going to be using double crochets, we want to do 10 plus 2, okay? So there's going to be an extra 2 chain stitches, and here's the loop on my hook, okay? And what we want to do is we're going to go in the 3rd chain from the hook. So this is the hook that I would go into, this first stitch. This is the first stitch I would go into if I was doing single. But now we want to go here. So we want to go in the 3rd stitch from the loop of your hook, okay? And we would go in here. But in order to do a double crochet, we must do a yarn over first. So we're going to go ahead and yarn over that hook. We're going to hook it onto our hook here, and then we're going to place that hook through that stitch. So there's 2 loops already on the hook before I'm even in this stitch. So then I'm going through, right? And I'm going through here and pulling that through. Now you can see why in the UK it's called a treble crochet or triple crochet, because there's 3 loops on my hook. But because we went 2 stitches and went into the 3rd stitch from the hook, so we skipped 2 stitches, we call it a double crochet. So then what's going to happen is once you go through and you have 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over again. And where this becomes a little bit tricky is you're actually going to pull through your first 2 loops right in here, leaving that last loop on the hook, and now you are down to 2 loops on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over again and pull like it's a single. So you're basically doing a single on top of a single, right? So now let's do that one more time, and you have this 2 stitches that are your first turning chain here, right? So then we're going to do that one more time. We're going to yarn over first, go into the next stitch through. Now I have 2 loops on my hook before I'm even through that stitch. I'm grabbing that yarn, we're yarn over that hook, and we're pulling through the stitch to have 3 loops on my hook. We're going to yarn over again, and we're going to separate and make sure we're only pulling through these first 2. So it's basically creating a single crochet right there, right? And then we're yarning over again and then pulling through the last 2 loops. Now you can see that this is actually a taller row. Once we get through a few more, you will see that it's a much taller row than just a single crochet, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do this one more time. All right, so here we're going to yarn over first so that I have basically 2 loops on the hook before I'm even going through the stitch. All right, so I'm on this stitch and I've got 2 loops on that hook. Then I'm going to yarn over again, pull through the stitch. Now I have 3 loops on my hook, and I am now going to separate these 3. I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to go through the first 2, okay, and then I'm going to yarn over again and go through the last 2. Okay? So let's continue onward. And now we're coming up to this last chain stitch, which is the very first slip knot we did, right? I'm going to pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we should have, if we look at the very top, we should have 10 stitches. We are not counting this chain here, correct? So because that's called the turning chain and you never really count it. Unless a pattern specifically says you do. Some patterns do count that turning chain, so you have to look at the pattern. Normally, if you're building something as a new crocheter, you don't. But we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We have 10 stitches. And what I'm going to do is, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my 5th stitch. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. And if you get into the habit of that, trust me, it's going to save you a lot of time. So now I'm at the end here, right? So before we would chain 1 and turn to do the single crochet, but we're doing a double. So we're going to chain 2, right? Just like we have the turning chain that chains 2 in here, we have to have the turning chain that chains 2 in here. So now we're going to chain 2, turn our work, okay? And now, again, we're going to go through those V's just the same way. We're going to yarn over first, go through the very first stitch. We're going to go under both of those, under the V, right? And you have to make sure you have both of those threads. And you're going to yarn over, pull through the stitch. You have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, okay, separate and pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Okay. And once again, yarn over first, go through the V, yarn over, pull through the stitch. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. You can see how that's building up. And now I'm at my stitch marker. And much in the same way that we did with our single crochet, I'm going to yarn over, go through that stitch, right? I'm going to pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and now I'm just going to move that stitch up. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and finish the row. Okay, so now we've gotten to the end here. This is my 5th stitch, right? So now I know that this is my 5th stitch. So I'm going to need to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I am missing a stitch, right? And this happens. I'm telling you, this is very, very common. It's very hard, but you have to go into the very top of that turning chain to get that last V. Okay. And that's why making sure you have a stitch marker helps you ensure you have even stitches all the way through your project, right? So as you're building that up. Now, I'm at the end here. I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn. Okay? I'm going to turn. And then I'm going to yarn over. And I'm going to go through the V, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And I'm going to go ahead and finish that row. Now I've gotten to the end, and what looks to be the end there, I know this is my 5th stitch, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I am. But, you know, just making sure that the stitch count is correct is going to help you make sure that you are blocking properly. So when you get to that step and you get to the very end of your project, you will be able to do that. Okay, so that is your double crochet. All right, so now we have a foundation chain of 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? And we are going to tackle the treble or triple crochet. So if it's 3, you guessed it, it's 3 chains above whatever your total chain number is. So if I'm doing 10, a chain of 10, it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to be a chain of 3 in order to be able to build my triple crochet or treble crochets through my row. Okay, so here we go. We have chain 3. We're going to yarn over once, right? And now, here's where it changes. We're going to yarn over again so that you have 3 loops basically on your hook before you're ever into the 4th chain from your hook, right? So you're going to come into that 4th chain with 3 loops already on your hook, right? And then you're going to yarn over and you're going to have now 4 loops on your hook. Yes, 4 loops on your hook. And you're going to yarn over, right? You're going to hook that yarn onto your hook and you're going to pull through 2. You're going to yarn over again, pull through the second 2, and yarn over again and pull through the last 2. And that is your treble crochet. So you're basically building 3 single crochets on top of each other. Okay? So let's go through that again. So now, we're in the 4th. You know, once you start, now you just continue to go into the very next stitch, right? So once you get that first 4th from the hook, you don't have to go another 4. You go straight into the very next stitch. So we're going to yarn over once, yarn over twice. We have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to go right into the very next stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull. Now we have 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2. We have 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. We have 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through those last 2. Okay? Once again, yarn over once, yarn over twice, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Okay? Once again, yarn over once, yarn over twice. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And we will continue. So we are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is our 5th. I'm going to use a nice bright green here, stitch marker. We're going to yarn over once, yarn over twice, go into that 5th stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So we're going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in there. And then we're going to continue to the end. And here we are at the very last stitch here. So we're going to yarn over twice into my final stitch, which was that originating slip knot. Pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. And I should have, this is my 5th stitch right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now I'm at the very end, and in order to turn and go the other way around, how many chains do you think I need to create? If you said 3, you're right. 1, 2, 3, and turn. Why 3? Because that's how many we started with our turning chain here. Now, it is possible to create pieces of work that call for a double crochet row or a single crochet row all in one project. Okay? So do keep in mind that certain patterns may switch row to row. And certain patterns, as we get more advanced, will even switch stitch to stitch, where I'll have a single crochet, then a double crochet, then a treble crochet, and back around. So as we get more into the advanced methods, you will see a mix of those types of stitches, as well as other types of stitches as well. So, okay, so then we're on our second row. We're going to yarn over twice, go through that first stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. Yarn over twice, in, 2, 2, and 2. We're getting right to the end here. I'm looking for that V. Okay, now I think that's the end, but I'm going to go ahead and count. So this is my 5th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is my 5th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So this is the second row. As you can see, let me bring this back. This is the double crochet. This is 3 rows, and it works up a lot quicker. This is only 2 rows. This is 3 rows, right? And if you look at the single crochet one that has a much smaller hook size, look how much smaller that is, right? This is 3 rows, do you believe? Yeah, 3 rows, 1, 2, and 3. So this is 3 rows in the single crochet with a 6mm hook. This is 3 rows in the double crochet with a 9mm hook, and this is just 2. So what do we want to do? We want to come to the end here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 because we're doing trebles or triples, right? Turn, and we're going to go and finish this row. Alright, so now we've done the 3rd row. This is my 5th stitch, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and now, as you can see, the size difference there. This is 3 rows. Every single one of these is 3 rows. Now, I do want you to see that because there's a very big difference in there. Okay? Alright, so now let's talk about finishing a project. So now let's go over here to this one. Now, let's just say I have completed my project and I'm finished with it, and now I want to tie off. So I've chained the one, and what you want to do here, okay, as you can see here, I've chained that one, right? What you want to do is you're going to go ahead and take your snips, and you're going to just get a nice tail, and then what you do is you pull that yarn through all the way. and then you really give it a nice knot there. Now, to ensure that your tails are sewn in and your tails are not going to come loose, what you want to do is then take your tapestry needle. Now, the way that I like to do this is I like to make sure it's nice and tight, so I make sure that that tail is twisted real nice and tight. And what I do is then I hold it onto the needle this way, right? And I give it a nice yank there, okay? And I just hold that there, and I slip the needle underneath, and then I thread it through the hole there. And sometimes it can be hard, especially with the bulky ones. And you're going to then have it onto your hook, and what you want to do is, to finish your project, you want to go, you see these V's right here? What we want to do is we want to go through the fibers of that V from one side, okay, through another, like this, okay, and kind of work that tail into the project a few times over, okay. And then what you're going to do here then is going to go back down a little bit, and you're going to thread through the fibers again, and then come through here and back and forth. Now, normally we like to do that about 3 times. So back and forth about 3 times. So just ensure that that gets really built into the fibers of my project. Right? Work that through. And you want to catch not just in between the fibers, but through the fibers, like so, like if you see here, I don't know if you could see that. If you see there, you can go through the fibers like that, right? So you want to make sure as you're working through, you're kind of going through the fibers themselves, and this will make it real nice and secure. Okay, and once you feel like you've gone through at least 3 times, you can then snip that yarn right, you're going to pull real tight, and you're going to snip that yarn right at that base. And believe you me, that thing is not going anywhere. And you're going to want to do that with your starting tail as well. So in this project, you're going to want to sew this side in as well. So once again, hold it there, slide that needle out, and again, sometimes with bulky thread, it can come apart on you. And you're going to sew that in to your project this way. And then depending on, and that's why sometimes I've said it before in other videos where I say it's nice to have a long tail sometimes, because then you can really, really work that into the project to secure it real nice. So it's advantageous to have that. This way. And if you need to, you can use shorter needles as well. Okay, so then we're just gonna hold that down pretty tight. Be careful with those scissors, especially sharp ones like this one. And you're gonna cut that right at the base. And that's pretty much it. So there you have it, guys. Single crochet, double crochet, and triple crochet. And as you can see also, with the increase in size of your crochet stitches also dictates how flexible a project is. This, you can see, spreads out a little bit, right? This one doesn't really spread out very much at all, but this one here spreads out quite a bit, and it's quite flexible and stretchy. So, you know, depending on what you're trying to do, if you want to do a scarf, I probably would do a scarf with a double crochet, just because it's a little stretchy but not overly so. If you want to do like a beanie or something like that, I would probably use a combination of this, maybe with like a starter band that's a single, so you can mix and match your crochet stitches. But that is your basics of crochet, the basic stitches of crochet. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Please give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you are subscribed to my channel, and look forward to our next video where we talk about half double crochets and half treble crochets.